15 months ago, I lost not just my job, but my entire career. My dream career as an artist in the animation industry that I had spent 10 years building. I was making six figures, I had health insurance, I was doing the work that I loved, and everything felt secure. And then it was over. And if you've ever found yourself in a similar situation, you probably had the first question that I had, which was, how am I supposed to provide for my family now? See, I thought my biggest problem was money, but it wasn't. There was a much bigger problem that needed to be addressed first. And that's when God started showing me what providing for my family actually means. Since I was 4 years old, I always knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an artist and draw cartoons for TV. I can remember as a kid just sitting at this little desk in my room, constantly drawing cartoons, drawing characters and worlds for them to live in. That's what I wanted to do. But somewhere during college, I convinced myself that dream wasn't realistic and it didn't fit the conventional corporate 9 to 5 mold. So I did what most of us do and chose the more practical, stable path. So for the next 9 years after college, I sat in one gray, fluorescent lit, depressing cubicle after another, wishing that I could be sitting at an animation desk at a studio instead. And then after 9 years of dying a slow cubicle death, I asked myself, am I really okay with getting into my 60s and wondering, what if I had pursued animation? So I decided I was done wondering, and I'd rather struggle chasing the dream God put in my heart than living the corporate life. So I started over. I picked up a pencil after about 12 years of not drawing anything. I studied every chance I got before work, after work. I sought out professional artists doing what I wanted to do, and I would ask them for advice on how to get into the industry. And after 8 years of relentlessly pursuing what I wanted to do, I finally got the phone call. I got a call from an animation studio in Los Angeles. They wanted to hire me as a full-time artist at their studio working on cartoons. So my childhood dream had finally come true. I finally made it, not just financially or professionally, but as a man, I had made it. I got to live that dream for 2 years. And then the industry took a turn and studios started cutting their budgets and they quit green lighting new shows and movies. And so I knew that once I finished my contract on the show I was working on, there wouldn't be anything else waiting after that. I remember the day I wrapped up production on my last show. I put the finishing touches on my last drawing. I clicked save, I sent it to my art director, and then I left work not knowing when or if I was even going to be able to do my dream job again. So, being able to provide well for my family is something I've always taken a lot of pride in, and being paid well made that really easy to do. And what I realized is once that income stream was gone, it wasn't just an income stream. That was really where I got my security was from that job and that paycheck. I really developed a tremendous sense of anxiety because I woke up wondering how I was going to provide every day. And that affected me not just in my thoughts and in my finances, but also it just made me really question, who am I as a husband now? I kept going back to Matthew 6, where Jesus says, don't worry about what you're going to do or what you'll eat or what you'll wear. He just says, look, your heavenly Father knows what you need. He loves you. He knows you need those things. Just seek his kingdom and his righteousness first, and then everything you need will be provided for you. That day, those verses hit me totally differently than they had before. I realized that nowhere in there does Jesus say that guaranteeing that my family has what they need for survival is my responsibility. And in fact, he says, God will provide everything you need. And so instead of waking up every morning in panic, asking, how am I going to provide? God put a new question in my heart. What if providing is not even your job to start with? And at first I was like, well, that's ridiculous. Of course it's my job. I'm the husband, I'm the dad, I'm the provider. Why wouldn't that be my job? And so that led to a new question, which was, okay, then what is my job? And then it all clicked. I realized I had been confusing two very different responsibilities, providing and working. Most of us just always assume those two responsibilities are the same thing, but they're not. Working is our job as husbands, providing is God's job. Now, I want to be very clear on this. I'm not saying don't work. I'm not saying go into the office tomorrow and tell your boss that you quit and that you're just going to go home and chill and play video games now because providing is not your job. Work is a good thing, and God creates us to work and use our gifts and abilities He's given us. The difference between work and providing is that my responsibility as a husband is to work faithfully. There are things I can do, and but there are also things I can't control. It's God's job to take the hard work that I put in and make sure that that turns into the provision that my family needs. So when unexpected things happen, that's where trust comes in. Because God never actually asks us to carry the responsibility of controlling outcomes. In addition to just working hard, our job is also, as Jesus says, to seek his kingdom and his righteousness, which basically translates to being obedient and faithful. And when we are obedient and faithful, God provides everything we need. But being obedient is incredibly difficult most of the time. And most of us will actually do whatever we can to avoid doing what God asks us to do. And that is when stuff does not work out. A perfect example of this is this YouTube channel. Through the past year of being in a panicked frenzy to get back the security I had lost, I had this voice in my head constantly saying, make the YouTube channel. I had been sitting on the idea of making this channel for over a year. And for that whole year, God kept trying to tell me, I'll take care of you, just make the YouTube channel. And I resisted it. And I kept saying, yeah, that's a great idea, God, but this is bad timing. It didn't seem practical or even responsible for me to do that at the time because it wasn't going to immediately make money. So I put off making this channel because I thought obedience could wait until my financial circumstances improved. But then I remembered I'm not called to do what I think is right. I'm called to obey and be faithful. So I finally surrendered and I was just like, okay, God, I'll start the YouTube channel. Once I did that, once I surrendered my need to make money and be my own provider, everything changed. Out of nowhere, the next day, I received an email from somebody I didn't even know that was asking me to do some contract work as an artist on an animated film they're producing. Then, just a week after that, my wife got a message out of the blue from a longtime friend of hers that owns a business, basically asking her, do you want a job? Completely out of the blue. Both of these things happened within 1 week of me choosing to trust God and be obedient to his calling. I made a choice to show up and be obedient to what God was asking me to do without concern for where money was going to come from. And then that's when God finally was like, okay, I see that you're being obedient. Now I can do my thing. He says in Psalms 37, delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. That means take joy and peace in what God's asking you to do. He will make sure things work out. If you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you've probably found yourself in a situation similar to mine. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you are facing a lot of debt, or maybe you've got a loved one who's sick and you've got medical bills piling up and you're wondering, how in the world am I going to provide for my family with all of this? And the answer is, you're not. God is going to do that. So you have a choice to make. Are you going to carry a burden and a responsibility that was never yours to start with? Or Are you going to just surrender and obey and do whatever it is God has for you to do? It comes down to trust. And I want to be clear that I don't have all this figured out. I'm still taking this one day at a time. I'm taking work that comes my way. I'm trusting God from one moment to the next. I'm just doing what God's asking me to do. Yes, I still have mornings where I wake up wondering where money is going to come from. But the difference is that now I don't have that wonder followed by panic, how I'm going to make it happen. Instead, that question in my head is accompanied by peace. When I was making a lot of money, my peace still lived and died by my bank account. Now I have a different perspective, and my peace comes from knowing the difference between providing and working. If you're also a husband who's trying to follow Jesus and figure out this whole thing, I would love to hear from you and have you follow me on this journey. On each episode, I'll be showing you what God is teaching me about being a godly husband and leading a family while also crafting a piece of artwork. And my hope is that with this channel, I can grow a community of men and we can all share our experiences so that as iron sharpens iron, we'll be able to build a community together and support each other and craft ourselves as better husbands. Until next time, keep the faith, be obedient, and let God handle the rest.